Welcome into the Player's Perspective Uncensored podcast. Got a wonderful host for you guys today. Sitting here with a UK legend, former NFL wide receiver, Keenan Burton. KB, welcome to the podcast, bro.
I appreciate you having me, man. I appreciate it.
Already, man. We go back to Little League football back in the days when I played football, man. Seemed like we always on the rival side of things, man. I played for the Muhammad Ali Jets. You played for the Rams. I went to Male High School. You went to Manual High School. I went to Louisville. You went to UK. It just seemed like we was always on the opposite sides of things, bro.
I mean, I guess that's just how life happens sometimes, man. I guess the best competitors bring the best out of you.
For sure.
Yeah.
But, man, glad to have you on the podcast. Glad that you took a little bit of time to come through and join us, man. And one thing we always talk to our guests about on the podcast before we get into sports is bourbon. That's one thing we talk about on our podcast besides sports. So, I was asking you earlier, was you a bourbon drinker? And you said, you do enjoy bourbon. So give me a go-to. What's one of your favorite drinks that you like to go to when you're divulging in bourbon?
Oh, well, my favorite is Pappy for sure. Sure.
We jump all the way to the top of the line.
Now listen, that's my favorite. Doesn't mean that I drink it off. All right. Well, let me go ahead and let you know that down. But my go-to probably would be Woodford. I like Weller, and I like Knob Creek as well.
Yeah.
I like Knob Creek as well. It just depends on how I'm feeling, man, honestly, because I have so many, that it just depends on the day. But, man, I love bourbon. I mean, you can't be from Kentucky and not, honestly.
Facts. I'm a big Weller's guy too, man. I love the wheated bourbon and the more sweeter side of bourbon, man. So Weller is definitely one that I've sort of grown to enjoy. But let's dive into the podcast and get into it, man. I want to ask you, coming up as a young football player, man, who was as a young athlete, who was somebody that inspired you or somebody that you wanted to emulate or imitate on the football field when you were coming up?
Man, that's a great question, man. Well, my dad always really inspired me just hearing stories about him as an athlete. And so that was one, but it really wasn't a professional. It was the guys that came before me. Like I was a huge fan of the Jacksons, Bashar. I was a huge fan of Jeremy Johnson. Like those guys going, on Friday nights, and I'm in Little League and I'm going to these high school games, and these dudes are going off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so those were the guys that I really wanted to impress, because some of those guys came to my Little League games too. And so it really wasn't, because I wasn't really a huge professional sports watcher growing up, nor was I a big college football watcher either. I watched Louisville because that's where I'm from, but I didn't know anything about any other school. So
right.
It would probably be the guys that came before me. They really inspired me to actually do some big things.
Nice. Now, you say you didn't watch a lot of it. Was you a fan of any teams when you were younger, college or professional?
Oh, I was diehard Louisville fan.
Diehard Louisville fan? Okay.
Diehard. And that was all I knew. My dad would take me right past, but at the time it was Cardinal Stadium where they played on the turf. And he was like, hey, one day, man, you'll play there. And he would just continue to keep saying and put it in my subconscious. And I was dumb enough to believe him, and it happened. You know what I'm saying? So
already. And so, man, you went to Manual High School, man. You were a stud football player, played all positions, but mainly quarterback. You did everything. I remember being able to come over and watch a few games, mostly when you guys played male, man. But I just remember I was like, man, Keenan is developing to a hell of a football player, man. And so, not only did I recognize it, but, everybody recognized it, and, college coaches recognize it as well. And so you end up choosing the University of Kentucky. But before you chose the University of Kentucky, who else was recruiting you, and what other schools were you considering going to?
Man, nobody. I had one offer. It was Kentucky. I was
actually
considering going to junior college because I had no offers. And then once I committed to Kentucky, Petrino was hired. And then he called me late, but before then, John L. Smith never recruited me. I mean, Manual was on University of Louisville's campus basically, and
right.
I never got recruited by anybody. It was just Kentucky.
Wow, that's amazing. It seems like once seems like once somebody recognizes something, everybody else wants to jump on the bandwagon a little bit later, man. But you know, that's how it goes sometimes. So once you were at Kentucky, Kentucky's more so known to be a a basketball school.
Right.
But going in, talk to me about the mindset of wanting to change that perception and wanting to change the culture of Kentucky football and wanting to, you know, be a contender in the SEC.
Well, I'm a winner, period. So I've always won in my life, despite anything that I've ever been through, I've overcome all the adversity. So it was no different, especially being overlooked too, because you kind of got a chip on your shoulder at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so it like you said, it really was just the mindset. My thought process was I'm gonna go in here, do what's necessary. And then in doing my job and actually, earning some respect to some of the upperclassmen, they'll notice it and then they'll follow me because anywhere I go, I am the leader. And so I really felt like that. And it wasn't just me, don't get me wrong, but I know I had a huge part in changing that and actually getting us over the hump at that time.
Now, who else was, I know Andre Woodson was there with you. Was Randall Cobb there with you as well?
No, so he was not there. So the guys that were with me were Wesley Woodyard, Jacob Tammy, Raphael Little, Stevie Johnson, Dickie Lyons. We had some Braxton Kelly. We had some dogs, man. We had some guys that were not highly recruited, but could ball. You know what I'm saying? Like really, really had it. And so that's why we were as good as we were. And Randall he came a year after I graduated. After I was
okay. Got you. Now, what was your favorite place to play in the SEC? Because, you got a lot of big time schools and night in, night out, man, there's no cupcakes in the SEC, man. So you pretty much playing against like pros each Saturday that you play in the SEC, man. So what would you say? I'm gonna ask you two questions. What was your probably the toughest competition and what was your favorite place to play?
Okay, so my favorite place to play by default is at home because it goes down regardless of what people think, right? It goes down. But probably some of the funnest places to play was Mississippi State because it was so loud. South Carolina is off the chain. We had a lot of Thursday night games with them, so it was crazy. And then I would say the hardest competition, the hardest game that I've ever been in is probably against LSU in 2006. We went up there and I mean, listen, it wasn't even. You walk into a game like it's about to be trouble today. You know what I'm saying? Like you have no chance of winning. So the thought process is, listen, do your job, do the best you can do, get out of here healthy. I got slammed on my neck. It was but it was fun. I mean, that's one of the hardest places to play for anybody.
Right.
That in Alabama. So those are some great places.
As a competitor, man, that you gotta love that, man. Just the ultimate challenge of sort of going against the odds, man, and trying to, go ahead and get a victory, knowing that everybody's expecting you not to, man. But just that competitiveness inside of you, man, like you can go ahead and get it done. It's just, like band of brothers, like an army type mentality that you go in with your team, man. And so I always thought on the basketball side, I always thought that was some of the funnest times is when, you don't have nobody cheering for you. You're going into, an opposing arena, man. It's just us. And we coming in here trying to shut everybody up, man. I always really enjoyed that myself.
Absolutely.
So with UK being, a basketball school, now, was it always supportive? Because I know sometimes at Louisville, it's a little friction sometimes between like basketball and football because Louisville was basketball school too, but like the football players were really wanting to have their respect. Like it's football school too. And so, sometimes there was a little bit of friction, but for the most part, it was sort of supportive. But, how were things at UK between the football and the basketball team?
Well, I think it was cool. You know what I'm saying? And I don't speak on it a lot because I was locked in on what I had to do. But a lot of the basketball guys that I was around at the time were great guys. I had classes with a lot of the older guys. Like I think Chuck's last year was my freshman year. And so they was always respectful, what have you. But I never really worried about being embraced by other sports. I was more so wanting to be embraced by the city and also by the fan base. Because, ultimately, we kids in college, we ain't really worried about we shouldn't be worried about what people feel as from another sport, but it
Right.
happened. But I just wanted to be embraced by the fans. I wanted them to understand, like, this ain't just a basketball school anymore. Like, I want y'all to know that we here to y'all gonna have some fun on Saturdays too now.
Right. Now speaking of that, that leads into my next question. Being an athlete up at University of Kentucky, like, did you feel like you were embraced completely, as a student athlete and a football player, or do you feel like, man, I was just embraced as a football player, and once that was it was over?
No, I do listen, and it is odd to me to hear other football players or players' experiences after college that are not embraced. I can go to Kentucky right now and get in contact with anybody. And I've used some of those contacts to help me in business today. And so not only did they embrace me while I was there, but they're continuing to embrace me right now because the Kentucky fan base is really just different, man. Like it really is. Like they will do anything for you if, if you have that right type of mentality and the mindset, they'll do anything for you. So I was fully embraced as an athlete, and also just just from a cultural perspective from UK.
Right. Now, 2008, man, you got drafted in the 4th round to the St. Louis Rams.
Yep.
Talk to me about that experience and, your feelings when you first getting drafted. Talk to me about that night and just, living out that dream.
Man, I was super excited and super grateful. But I also was sitting there like, it took y'all long enough. I've been on this business a long time, and I know that I'm much better than a lot of these guys that got drafted in front of me. And looking back, hindsight's always 2020. It doesn't matter where you get drafted, bro. It matters about the opportunity at the end of the day. That's all it matters about. And so I was excited. I wasn't too crazy about the offense that I was going to be put in, because I knew that there would have been a transition, and I knew that this offense was something that my quarterback had struggled with at the Senior Bowl, and we had kind of talked about it. But it's one of the best feelings of your life, man, to accomplish that very thing that you worked for your whole entire life, to actually be there. It was man, life changing, bro, life changing.
For sure. Now, what would you say were some of the biggest adjustments that you had to make on and off the field now that you've become an NFL player?
So, I didn't really have to adjust much because, again, like you said, playing in the SEC, it kind of gets you prepared. Like you're ready when you get into the league. Now, you might have to adjust to how physical it is because everybody is fast. Everybody can play, like everybody. But ultimately, I was accustomed to that because of the conference that I was in. But my adjustment came with, honestly, the free time. Like, going from having class and then transitioning to it being just football. So I spent a lot of time in the facility, taking peanut butter and jelly and bread because I made sure I kept my money and making sure that I was using them for what it is that I could use them for. But no, my biggest adjustment came from just being injured, man. That was my biggest adjustment because I was injured in college. But now it's mentally it's tough because you know that if you can't get on the field, you can't continue to play. And I mean, that's where my career ended because I couldn't recover from my knee injury. So that was probably my biggest adjustment is dealing with the injuries, especially when I was having a good career.
And that was leading into my next question. You played 3 years in the NFL, and I know you had some injuries in college, and you had some injuries in NFL, obviously that led to having a short career.
Mm-hmm.
But just talk about having to sort of get over that moment of maybe not playing as long as you want to, and having worked so hard all of your life to get to a certain point, and then to sort of have it cut short and kind of say had it taken away from you.
Yeah.
Really, it's nothing you can really do about it. But just talk about having to get over that and moving on past that point, and the mental part of it.
Yeah, that is probably one of the best questions that anybody's ever asked because it's one of the toughest things. If you think about all of the teammates that we've had in college, they have still, some of them have not recovered from actually not being able to pursue a professional career and whatever it is. And so to reach the pinnacle, some would say you need to be grateful that you got there, but that wasn't the plan. That was never the plan. The plan was play 10, 12 years, retire everybody in my family, and everything was good. That was the plan.
Right.
And so you deal with a lot of feelings of failure. And one thing that I had to overcome was understanding that I didn't fail. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't fail. And I always tell a lot of the guys that come after me that their career is short. Regardless of how long you play, there's still going to be some type of void in your life. It doesn't matter because what you've been doing your whole career, your life, things you prepare for is gone now. And my dad put it in perspective. He said, it was one day we were talking and I was really down about it. And I was like, man, I cannot believe this. And he said to me, I'm glad you're not playing anymore. He said, well, I said, why? He said, because who's to say that the knee injury wasn't preventing something more? What if you would have got killed on the field? And this is God's way of, and after that, I was good. I was good. And I just tell all athletes, man, like in your adjustment period or when you're playing, you have to come up with something else to occupy your time, whether it be trading stocks, whether it be building businesses. I'm in real estate now, you know, all of the Forex, whatever it is, find something else that you could create income from to take your attention off of it. Because when it's over and it ain't coming back.
Right.
And so that was a challenge, man. That was probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to deal with in my life. And you got to do it alone because nobody understands.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody.
I get it, man. And one thing I always try to tell people, man, the hardest thing as a competitor, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whatnot, whatever sport it may be, is trying to find that balance of being appreciative and holding yourself accountable in the pursuit of greatness. And what I mean by that is, like you talked about, being appreciative, like, damn, I did make it to the NFL. I did play 3 years, but at the same time, holding yourself like, damn, you know, could I have done more? Could I have done something different to, you know, maybe gone a little further or done something different? So I always say, man, it's always a fine line trying to find that balance between those two things, man. But I think in the present moment, I think the accountability and the pursuit of greatness is more so present than the appreciation. And I think that comes later on as time passes. I think the appreciation comes more and more greater and takes more of a threshold on your thoughts with things that pass. But I've always talked to people about that being a tough balance between those two.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to also think at the time. You got to look at who you're comparing yourself to. That's even though I've never been a loud person, a flashy person, or anything like that. I've really been to myself. You compare yourself to others that have come before you and those that were with you, and so you look at them and you say, "I'm happy for the accomplishments that they've had, and I'm proud of that." But you know, God made me great for a reason. He gave me this gift for a reason, and so I was supposed to maximize it. And you don't realize that you did maximize it until after it's gone. You did maximize it. It's just not to the extent that you felt like you should have.
Right.
And then once you're at peace with, okay, you know what? I maximized it. Now it's time to be great at something else. You're gonna always be you're gonna be in your feelings 100% of the time.
Facts. KB, now we reached a part of the podcast, man, we call our burn-proof segment of rapid fire questions, man. We're going to shoot you some rapid fire questions. Don't give it a lot of thought. Just give us your first answer. We're going to roll with it.
All right.
First question. One quarterback you would have loved to have received some passes from?
Peyton
Manning. Yeah. Is he the GOAT in your book?
I would have to say so, man. I think he created the blueprint for people, man. Even Tom, even TB12, bro. I mean, Peyton did a lot with a little, bro.
I'm a big Peyton fan too, man. I'm a big Peyton fan. One person you would really like to meet, they could be past, you know, here or, you know, dead or alive. One person you would have liked to meet.
Probably Martin Luther King.
Nice.
I would have wanted to know why. Why did you fight so hard? Like why? I would want to say thank you too. Why?
Yeah. I always wished I could have met Ali, man. That was one person I wish that I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with.
Yeah.
If you wasn't playing football, what sport would you be playing?
Basketball. I was a dog. I mean, I couldn't shoot, but I mean, shoot, if I had as much time as y'all did, I mean, I probably would have went pro too.
Tom Brady, Is he the greatest quarterback ever, or is he the greatest football player ever, or neither, or both?
Greatest quarterback because of accomplishments. But from a biased perspective, Peyton is still my favorite. But yes, he is the greatest quarterback to play ever.
Okay, but not the greatest football player ever.
No. I would have to say that, and I don't even know who that would be, but it would have to be an offensive lineman, somebody that we don't even know about. They don't give them to get enough credit. Like, it would have to be one of those guys that have been so selfless in their career and they've protected and not given up 10 sacks over a 20-year career. To me, that's greatness. To me,
Right.
They got the hardest job.
Who's the toughest DB that you ever faced?
Charles Woodson.
What was it about Charles Woodson that made him tough? I mean, we know he was great, but what was it about him specifically that made him the toughest?
He was so smart. It's concepts, right? So depending on defense or what have you, he forces you into a certain release, and it's like, and they know, like, it's so crazy how mental the game is as you get up in profession as a professional. And he just knew everything that I was doing, and I just couldn't understand it because he was one of the first guys that I played with. And I'm like, I cannot understand how you know everything that I'm doing. But a lot of guys at certain points ran my routes for me. Asante Samuels ran a route for me, and I'm like, how you know what I'm running? Revis was tough, but sometimes you get to a point where you actually start figuring guys out the more you get a chance to play against them.
Right. Now, there's a question we call franchise, sign, and waive. You got to franchise a guy that you would build your team around. You got to sign a guy that you would keep, and you got to waive a guy that you ain't got a roster spot for. We're going to go wide receiver edition.
Ooh.
So we got Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Got Stephon Diggs.
Okay.
You got Mike Evans.
Ooh. Sign, trade, and waive?
Yeah, you got a franchise. Who you going to build? Yeah, not the franchise tag, but like, franchise who you would build your team around. And then you got to sign a guy that you can keep with the franchise player, and then you got to waive a guy that you ain't got a spot for. You got 2 out of the 3.
I'm going to franchise Tyreek Hill because he can do multiple things. He can do multiple things. I'm going to sign Mike Evans, and I'm going to.
Ooh, you get rid of Stephon Diggs?
Yeah, I am.
I'm gonna trust you on that because you're the professional football player. Man, I don't know if I could have waived Stephon Diggs though.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. You would have to give me because you got to think Mike Evans, though. He's selfless. He can do anything in any situation. Stephon Diggs is a dog, but he struggled late in the playoffs. I need you to show up.
Yeah.
Often when it comes to that. Now he's got a big catch and that and all of those things, but now like Mike Evans, I need somebody grinding because I know what it's like to be in the trenches. Like you can't just hang outside. Like you got to go in there and bang. And that's what he does. He's cool with that. So yeah, that's tough though, man. But that would be my picks.
Favorite steakhouse to eat at? Could be any place.
Man, Eddie V's.
Eddie V's.
Eddie V's. Eddie V's is fire.
Where's Eddie V's?
Eddie V's. I ate at Eddie V's for the first time in Arizona, and they have one in Orlando. And then there's another steakhouse here, and it's called House in Atlanta. You been to House before? It's legit too.
House? I'm gonna have to check. I'm gonna have to check it out though. House. I definitely love to try out a good good steakhouse. House. I'm gonna have to try that one.
Yes, sir.
One thing you would tell a young guy that's coming up and wanting to be the best that he can be in his future, what advice would you give him going forward?
Believe bigger, quicker. Problem with people is that they limit belief in the thing that they think that they say that they want. And then in the pursuit of it, you start to build the belief once you start having the success. I wish I was a guy that knew that I knew from the beginning how special I was. And I would have been a far greater athlete. And so a lot of times we wait until we see something in ourselves, it clicks. But I think God gives us this power and we can actually make it click. if we believe from the beginning. So I would say believe much bigger, much faster.
I'm gonna echo that sentiment, man. If I could say one thing, that probably would apply to me as well, man. To believe bigger and quicker, because it seemed like, things finally clicked a little later, but I'm like, man, if I'd have really had that like deep down within from the get-go, no telling where I would have been.
Oh, listen, you came in the gym with some glasses on, took them glasses off and dropped 40. I will never, I used to look at, I said, okay, if he this tall, this big, with these big shoulders, and he got these glasses on, he about to be a problem when he But nah, man, you was a killer, man. And I mean, you are somebody that I definitely admire too. I looked up to you, and y'all always came in our building and handed us some L's when I was in school. So it's love though. But yeah, you had it for sure.
Man, I appreciate it, KB, man. I appreciate you. And what a great way to close out the podcast, man. I couldn't have thought of a better sentiment to close it out with, man. But I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come through and talk to us, man. Bless us with your presence, brother. Wish you nothing but the best going forward. Things are starting to look better, man. So we definitely got to link up here in the future, man.
We do. We got to get some bourbon together, bro.
Yes, sir. You know it. I appreciate you, man.
No problem.
All right, later, KB.
Peace.